Hey, let's make something. This time I'm modifying a Dollar Tree decorative birdhouse into a little house that's decorated for Christmas. This is just an ornament, but you could easily modify this sort of thing for tabletop gaming or any sort of other miniature you like. I took out the little perch on the front and I took the base off. I decided taking the walls apart was just not going to be worth it. Taking them apart, putting them back together, so didn't do that. I made templates using some graph paper of how I wanted the door and windows to look. And I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't really measure this to scale. I knew I wanted them to be very small because I wanted this little birdhouse to look as if it could plausibly be a house that had 2 floors. So, windows and door quite small. And because I want it to light up inside, I'm using a electric tealight, and I'm carving out space in the base for it because I'm going to glue it into place, and then when the whole thing's put together, you'll just be able to flip the switch underneath from the outside. You don't have to take it all apart, which is what I wanted. And that worked out pretty well. And then here I'm carving out the windows so that light will shine through them using my tiny drill, which is a little tricky. I just drilled a whole bunch of holes and sort of punched out the extra pieces inside. The nice part is this doesn't have to look neat and tidy because it's going to be covered with the brickwork. And speaking of brickwork, I am peeling the paper coating off of dollar store foam board, which is like poster board that has this foam core inside of it, and it's very good for sculpting. It's very easy to emboss, basically. So, remove the paper. I'm cutting it out with a craft knife. And soon, I'll be turning it into a brick wall. But first, modifying the birdhouse a little bit. I wanted the back of this house, this brick house, to have a double chimney, which you see a lot in houses around here. I live in the Delaware Valley in the United States, and you see a lot of houses built in the late 18th century through the 19th century that are very simple brick houses, but they do have that double chimney, and I really like how that looks. And then I'm just using my knife to cut out all those windows, the door. It's nice, the foam's very light. You do have to be careful, it tears easily, but it also cuts very easily, which is nice. Here you can see I'm adding an extra layer of foam to the chimney so that it will look, properly sized once it's all together. And now I'm using a ball stylus. You could also use like a ballpoint pen. And I'm just gently embossing the shape of brick lintels above the door and the windows, and also a brick border around this round window. And then, just using a ruler, making lines for the bricks, and carefully embossing off-center lines between to make the proper brickwork. Measuring it out. Here I'm just using really simple, a thin layer of cardboard from a box of something, I think, just scrap cardboard. And I made a grid of 1 centimeter squares, and I'm making strips that are 2 centimeters long, and then they're going to be, you can see cut out as like a fringe of slates. This is like a slate roof. It's not ideal. Slate would probably be thicker and it would look a little rougher. So I'd have to think of a way to really get that slate look, but I do like how close this gets. It's close enough for me for this project. And I'm using little lengths of coffee stir stick as the window and door frames, because it's almost the same thickness as the foam, so it lines those spaces nicely. I think that is a good look. And because I couldn't bend wood into a circle to fill this window, I'm just using some black thin foam, a little strip glued in all along the edges, which will be painted, so I think it works out pretty well also. And there they are, all done. And now I'm adding cross pieces to the windows. This is the same coffee stir stick, but I've divided it into quarters lengthwise. So this is pieces that are 1/4 the width of a stir stick, and then even shorter lengths to make the cross pieces. And that roof. Here I decided the chimneys were too tall because I wanted to add chimney pots, which I'm using a wooden bead here, also from the dollar store. This is a long, like, toggle bead, and the two halves of it are going to be, you sometimes see on old brick houses, chimney pots, which are, they look like flower pots, except they're hollow at the bottom, and they decorate the top of a chimney. They also stop things from falling into it. So that's what that is. And the door, which was just a little piece of wood, and then I used some cardboard to make panels on it. And now I'm sealing the surface all over with a mixture of Mod Podge, which is glue and paint, and then a little bit of acrylic paint in unbleached titanium is the name of this color. It's just kind of a nice off-white. I wanted to mimic the plain cream paint you see on a lot of the woodwork in these brick houses around here. And then also, as a bonus, it's a good background grout color for all of my little bricks. It took a couple coats. I'm only showing the one, but as you can see, the black of that foam still shows through at this stage. And now I'm gluing in the windows. For this I use scraps of Shrinky Dink plastic, which is the plastic you can draw on and then you shrink it in the oven. Which is I just like because it's nice and thick, and this one is sanded on one side, which is good for diffusing light. You could also just use scrap plastic that you have sanded yourself. You get the same result. It's nice if you can use tissue paper or this sanded plastic where you won't really be able to see in through the windows, which is what you want because there's nothing in there. But it also lets the light out very nicely and you can't quite tell where the light's coming from, which is a good effect. Here we go, painting bricks. This took a while, but it was very easy. This is just, I think it's burnt umber is the color of paint I used. Brick houses around here are like this. They're all one very bright shade of red. So that's what I went with here. It's fun to see it in fast forward. It comes together so fast. It wasn't too bad doing it. It's quite relaxing to color each brick. And I knew because this burnt umber paint I was using, I was putting it on to different levels of thickness in different places, so it gave it kind of a natural mottled effect, which is great because then I didn't have to do any extra steps for that. For the roof, I wanted the dark gray slate you see that has touches of greens and purples to it. So I went with a plain mix of black and white. I tried to wet blend it on the roof, didn't get very far. It's mostly a uniform gray. But then you see I'm going to be adding some green and purple. And on the base, I'm just making a doorstep that is plain slate. It's very small. You'll barely be able to see it, but I think it's a nice touch. Yeah, wet blending again, just adding a little dark green. making some random green slates rather than gray. I am pretty happy with how this turned out. I wish that I had something nicer than cardboard for the base. I'll have to figure that out in the future, but those little touches of purple and gray I think look just right. They really look like real slate. And then I went kind of heavy on the brick with the dry brushing in white, because a lot of the old houses around here that are this bright red brick, I guess it's the grout breaking down, but they have a lot of white sort of cloudiness over the surface. So I did that. I did some on the roof to make it look a little worn or frosty maybe. And then I decorated some of the bricks around the door and window frames in that darker brown you saw just there, because you do see that here. The building will all be one uniform red brick, but then the details will be a brown brick. And here, just some hot glue to put that light in place. Now I'm experimenting with hot glue to make icicles at the edge of the roof. I'm sorry it's out of focus. This worked okay. It's kind of hard to show on camera because you want to attach a blob of glue and then pull straight down. And then, once it's hardened, because it's very stringy, you can cut off the end with a pair of scissors. It looks like an icicle. It worked alright. Now I'm using metal nail charms. These are for doing manicures. You can get whole sets of them pretty cheap. And I'm just choosing ones that I think look like hardware for a door. So I have a little ring there, a golden ring, and then over top a golden star to look like a door knocker. And now the doorknob. It's just a little decorative square, which is pretty good for a doorknob plate, I think. I spent a lot of time looking at all my little parts to see what would be the best. I love these. They say these are also for nail art. They're quite heavy though. They are made of metal. They're just like tiny ball bearings of different sizes. I have them in gold and silver. They're great. Now I'm using some dollar store moss to make greenery. The wreath here is just little pieces of, it's called lycopodium, and you see that on the bags at the dollar store. It's a very pine tree looking moss, which is, of course, perfect for what I want. And then just some standard green moss, decorative moss. This is meant to be pine boughs beneath the window. And then on top of that, using some nail art caviar in red, I'm just adding some, they might be berries, they might be Christmas baubles. I think they look nice. Yeah, adding some more ornaments to this huge wreath. And berries also. And then I thought the back was quite plain, so I decided to add a climbing vine. I think there are more realistic ways to do this. Perhaps wire or green thread to be the body of the vine, and then attaching individual leaves. That might have looked more like ivy, perhaps. But I don't mind how this came out, really. I'm just using the dust at the bottom of the bag of decorative moss and sort of putting down glue and then frosting the wall. Yep, you'll see that a bit later, but I think it looks alright. And here I made snow with, let's see what's in here. This is some glue, some white paint, some baking soda, and some white decorative sand, also from the dollar store. It's good. You want something that sticks down really well. And I wanted something that had some bulk to it. Baking soda and glue is a good model maker's snow, but it lies very flat. So adding the white sand to it, I think, is really a big help here. And I'm adding some to the roof. Trying to get it along the top edge of the slates as if the wind might have brushed it away from the edges. Didn't put any near the chimneys because, of course, the chimneys would be hot. They've got to have a nice little fire inside to keep warm, so that would melt the snow. This worked out pretty well. I wanted a more realistic look to the snow, so I kept it as is, and I like it. But I think it would also look nice for more of a fantasy look if you added a little bit of white glitter. That would be pretty. And this was a lot of fun to make. I don't know if I'll do any more pieces like this year, but I could see coming back to this in the future, making a whole village. That'd be very cute. Well, that's it, and I would like to thank you for watching, and I'll just leave you with a look at it on my new turntable. Sorry about my fingers. Happy holidays.